Over the past 11 years, I've spent hundreds of hours playing 1-2 and 1-3, reviewing hands and talking to players who genuinely want to get better. That gave me a front row seat to what actually works in live poker and what problems players have. So in this video, I'm going to quickfire the 20 most valuable lessons I've learned and that can help you crush live low stakes poker. And most importantly, I'll show you the one question you need to ask yourself in every spot, because that question changes everything and will make you a better player. Lesson number 1. Just recently, I played in a great game with a lot of bad players that were donating money left and right. But there was also this one pro who I've known for 10 years and who was still the crusher I remembered him to be. He sat there with a stack of almost £4,000 at a 1-2 game after a successful night. He was involved in almost every pot, had massive swings throughout the night, but he was just way too good for all the other players. When I first started playing poker, I got intimidated by players like him. I felt frustrated that I played a tight strategy and could barely beat the games at the time. Instead of seeing him as an inspiration, I used to feel like a failure. Now I've learned to look at things very differently. I know that we shouldn't compare ourselves to the big crushers in the game, because that distorts what normal live poker progress looks like. And besides, his win rate might not even be better than mine. He just pays a lot more rake by being such a loose player. Lesson 2. After playing for 4 hours at that table and winning over £500, I started feeling tired. I made small mistakes and kept being distracted by my phone. Years ago, I would have continued playing, forcing myself to stay in that great game. But now I've realized that playing shorter sessions with more focus beats grinding more hours while I'm tired or distracted. So I just cashed my chips in and left before my concentration dropped too low. Lesson 3. In another session, a guy checked the river with 9 high. When his opponent checked behind, the first player started saying things like, "I don't have much, if you have a pair, you win." The other guy said he didn't have a pair. The first guy then said, "Well, you might win even without a pair then." This went back and forth for another 10 seconds or so before they both finally turned over their hand. The second player eventually scooped the pot with his jack high. No big deal, you might say, but the fact that neither of them wanted to show down their hand told me that there are not winners in the game and definitely not crushers. How do I know that? Well, a good player would probably have bet their 9 high on the river because it would be their only chance to win the pot. And if they had decided not to bluff, they would have just tabled their hand without making such a fuss, because winning players focus on making the best decision, while losing players focus on avoiding mistakes and embarrassment. Lesson number 4. A player I know well recently told me that he's thinking about quitting poker. He said he just couldn't take it anymore after 4 sessions in a row full of bad beats. I asked him if he made big mistakes. He said not really. Maybe he wasn't at his sharpest, but overall he felt good about his decisions. Then I asked about his win rate. He said he'd been averaging about 8 big blinds per hour at 1-2 over the past 6 years. So this is clearly a winning player, and yet he was ready to quit because of 4 bad sessions. Once I shifted his perspective, he regained motivation and kept playing. Last time I saw him, he actually left with almost £2,000. This made me realize something important. If you tie your emotions to short-term results, poker will feel unbearable. And this leads me to lesson number 5. A lot of players get this wrong when they try to improve. They try something new, and if it doesn't work right away, they abandon it. But learning a strategy doesn't show up instantly in your results. It takes repetition, it takes time. So instead of asking, "Did this make me money today?" ask yourself, "Was this a better decision than I would have made before?" Because that's the only real way to measure progress in poker. Lesson 6. Watching high-stakes poker can be really fun. Seeing Tom Dwan and Jean-Robert Bellon getting it in for almost $1 million is as exciting as poker can get. But the problem with watching Nick Airball, Rampage, Phil Ivey, Mariano, and all the other high-stakes pros is that low-stakes players try to copy their moves. They will triple barrel bluff a calling station or slow play monsters against super aggressive players. Sure, they develop their creativity and their confidence by doing that, but the key to crushing live low stakes is neither creativity nor confidence. It is discipline and getting the fundamentals right. So if you want to work on your fundamentals, I've created a free cheat sheet for you where I'll give you all my opening and 3-betting ranges so that you can just copy me. Click the link below or scan this QR code to get them. Lesson 7. Let me ask you a question. Does poker feel easy to you? If it does, great. Then you're either a stoic or you haven't been at the receiving end of bad beats and downswings enough yet. Because I can tell you, poker, unfortunately, is never easy. Even for the best players, the game comes with lots of ups and downs. Sure, the better you get, the easier it will feel, but live poker, or any poker for that matter, will never feel truly easy to anyone because you will always have to make some tough decisions. But many ambitious players will get frustrated because they expect poker to feel easier once they get better. But that ain't the case, so just accept that and try to improve the quality of those decisions. Lesson number 8. When was the last time you had a genuine bad beat? A hand where you got outdrawn on the river for a big pot? If you're like most players, you'll remember the hand well because you will have talked about it at length. But you see, one hand doesn't really matter, even if it's a hand where you made a big mistake. Of course, it's important to learn from the mistakes you made, but don't dwell on one particular hand because one misplayed or unlucky hand doesn't define your win rate. Cash game poker is a lifelong game, and any hand, no matter how big and costly, is just one hand of many. It's not the bad hand that gives you a negative win rate, it's the string of emotional decisions that comes from that. Lesson 9. A friend of mine recently told me that he was trying to fix his flop play. He had figured out to c-bet bigger on ace-high boards, which by the way is something I've been teaching for years, so there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But whenever I watch him play, he makes these crazy hero calls on the river where he loses most of his stack because he feels bullied. His river play is a bigger leak than the Titanic had, yet he wants to focus on tiny improvements in his flop c-betting. And I've seen this so often in my career. Most players focus on fixing small leaks while ignoring massive emotional ones. Before spending time and energy on the technical part of the game, get your mental game ready. Which leads me to lesson number 10. It's hard to always play your A game, but I have definitely had sessions where I felt I was really sharp. I thought that every big decision I made was right, and even after I analyzed my play off the table later, I still held that belief. And yet, I often lost in those sessions because the cards just didn't come my way. I either got sucked out on, or I made a great bluff that got snap called, or I made a value bet in a spot where villain just happened to have a better hand, or possibly even all three of these things. This will happen more often than you think, and definitely more often than you'd like it. The lesson is to accept that these situations exist where you played correctly and still lost. That doesn't mean you need to overhaul your strategy. Lesson number 11. When things don't go well over a longer period of time, there are typically two types of people. One group feels frustrated and cheated by the poker gods and is thinking about quitting, and the other one who is also frustrated and feels cheated by the poker gods, but who still sticks with it and trusts the process. And I've noticed that with my students too. The ones who stayed positive when things didn't go to plan usually get the better long-term results. The important bit here, however, is to know that you have a good strategy in the first place, because you don't want to trust an unproven strategy, so make sure you get that sorted first. Lesson 12. As I said earlier, confidence won't win you pots, but having the confidence to sit at any low-stakes table and knowing that you can hold yourself in that game and make a profit is a great feeling. Whenever I sit down at any table up to 2-5 in the world, I have that confidence. But too many players expect to gain such confidence from having a few good sessions or after watching some YouTube video about bluffing. But that's not how it works. Confidence comes after making good decisions over and over, not before. Lesson 13. What do you think is the biggest edge in live poker? I recently thought about this when I put together my structured training program for my students, and I came to the conclusion that it's actually really simple. It's the same edge that good players already had 20 years ago, and the same edge the gamblers in the old American West probably had. The biggest edge in live poker is still other people playing emotionally while you make logical decisions. Being calm matters more than being clever. That's why it's so important to warm up your mind before you start playing. Do a meditation, a dedicated live poker warm-up hypnosis, or at least take a few deep breaths and think about what your goals are for the session. And no, by goals I don't mean how much money you want to make, but something like wanting to find the best possible decision in every spot or not acting too quickly out of an impulse. Lesson 14. I remember in my first year of playing poker, I sat down at the table in a new card room and opened Ace-4 suited. A guy directly to my left 3-bet me. I felt attacked. The fight or flight mechanism kicked in. And I can tell you, I didn't run. So what did I do? I fought. I 4-bet shoved on him because, well, I didn't want to get bullied in my first hand, right? He snap called, turned over pocket aces, and scooped a big pot. My ego cost me my entire stack. That's why you have to leave your ego at the door of the entrance to the card room. Lesson 15. Did you ever notice those players who sit at the table and play the odd hand, but most of the time they're texting their second girlfriend or watching the new episode of their favorite Netflix series? Or are you maybe one of them? Well, I certainly was. But I missed so much of the action, I missed player tendencies and leaks that could have filled my wallet while being distracted by text messages. I still use my phone to take notes of important hands, but it is essential to not get distracted by the outside world. Some players even leave their phone in the car or at home. Whatever your weapon of choice, it is crucial that you stay off your phone. Be present at the table to pick up on valuable information. Lesson 16. I once went to the card room at around 10 in the morning. A few minutes after I sat down, I raised ace-jack suited and got called by the gentleman to my right. I flopped the flush draw, made a c-bet, he called. The turn was a brick, I kept barreling, he called again. And then, bingo, the river brought in the beautiful flush. I bet big and the guy called very quickly with top pair. When I showed down my hand, he was surprised why I won the hand. The dealer explained it to him and then he said, "Oh, I didn't see that there was a flush on the board. I've been playing since 8 o'clock last night." Half an hour later, the guy fell asleep in the middle of a hand. This shows how crucial it is to always be sharp when you play poker. So never compromise quality for quantity. Don't play tired just to log hours. Lesson 17, and this is about the one question I mentioned at the beginning. It is the question that rules them all. In live poker, where you don't have to be too bothered about being balanced, there is only one question you genuinely need to ask yourself whenever you're thinking about making a bet or a raise. And that is, what do I want to accomplish? This is so simple, but because I usually don't have to worry about getting exploited, this one question determines what size I use. Do I have a great hand and want to get value? Then I bet big. Do I have a speculative hand that wants to see a cheap flop? Well, then I won't bet big. I'll bet as small as I can get away with. This question is so powerful both pre-flop and post-flop. What do I want to accomplish? Make it your mantra. Lesson 18. Are you one of those people who watch every YouTube video about poker, who read every article they can find on the topic? Well, that used to be me. And it was great. I gained a lot of information and learned a lot from that. But information alone can only get you so far, because information as such doesn't change your results. The results improve once you put that information into practice. But not if you do it once, you need to apply it over and over until it sticks. The reason for that is lesson number 19. Because repetition works even when you're bored of hearing the same things over and over. We human beings learn best by repeating things. And so lesson number 20 is once again, because repetition works even when you're bored of hearing the same things over and over. We human beings learn best by repeating things. You can start by learning my exact opening and 3-betting ranges so that you can just copy me. Click the link below or scan this QR code to get them. And if you want to see how my student Spencer has gone from being break-even to crushing the games within only 90 days, then watch this video next.